This podcast brought to you by Basecrete, leaders in waterproof bond coatings for the swimming pool and construction industry.
I feel like a good starting point for this conversation, all right, is why don't you give me a little bit of bio about how you got started designing and building luxury and ground pools back in the day?
Okay, so in 2002, kind of when we were transitioning and starting to get into major remodel work with my service company, I had a mentor who taught me kind of what he knew, but he was pretty limited even in what he knew. And so I just found myself, I can tend to be an information junkie, and so I found myself just looking and searching. And in 2006 is when I found Genesis. And so I dove, headfirst into Genesis. And I was traveling all over the country taking the Genesis classes. And that was really kind of the foundation for everything. And then just kept getting deeper and deeper into my Genesis education, getting to know the instructors, just immersing myself into learning everything that I could about pool construction. And then when Dave Peterson and Bill Drakely decided to split off and form Watershape University, they were two of the most influential people in my educational career. And so it was just pretty much, it was just a natural for me to transition over with them. And I'm just so excited with, there's a lot of things that you guys aren't seeing yet that I know are coming within the Watershape brand and the offerings in that. And so I'm excited about all of that, but even just everything that's going on right now. I love Dave and Bill's vision for the industry and that. And so I'm just happy to be a part and be a contributing professor, I guess you call us, but just to be able to teach and continue to give back to the industry, because those guys gave so much to me. I just want to pay it forward.
Outstanding. Can I ask you some questions pertaining to the split from Genesis and Watershape? Would you be okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. So some of the perception in the industry is that they don't know the distinction between the Genesis program and the Watershape University. Some think that it's actually the same thing. Some people think that you actually still work for both. Can you shed a little light on that so that I can offer a little bit of clarity to perhaps people in the pool industry that don't know the distinction between the two programs?
Yeah, we had a discussion on Facebook about this not too long ago. And both programs were founded on the same principles. And that principle is elevation of the pool construction side of the industry. So Watershape University split off, and I'm not exactly sure all of the reasons behind that, but I think Dave and Bill, just with everything going on, just decided that they had a vision for what they wanted education to be, and decided that they thought that they could do a great job with it on their own. And so they broke away and have created Watershape University. So it is a completely separate system. There are similar overlapping classes. And so I always just encourage everybody to read the bios and see which fits your needs the best. The instructors at Watershape, they're the guys in the field. Bill Drakely sits on the American Shotcrete Association board, and so he's literally helping to write the codes for shotcrete in the country. Dave Peterson is involved in the World Aquatic Health Conference and has been involved here in California with shaping some of the codes in the California Building Code. So I just look at the instructors that Watershape has, and they're the people on the front lines actually writing the codes in there. For me, that was why it was just a natural for me to come over. But there are slight differences in their programs. There are a few teachers that actually cross over and teach for both organizations. And one of the other things that I really like about Watershape University is the accreditation, the way they give out their accreditations. You can earn your initial accreditations a lot more quickly, and it's a lot simpler to get your initial accreditation as opposed with the Genesis program. You have to get through, it's almost like you have to get all the way to your master's degree before you ever get any recognition, whereas Watershape University, you have your associates and then your bachelor's and then your master's and then your PhD. So it's broken down a little bit more like that. So I really like that part of it as well. But as far as the programs, there are some overlap in the programs. So is that helpful?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that does shed a lot of light on the subject. You've got extensive experience working on a lot of the most cutting-edge projects in the world, and now you're functioning as a mentor, helping other builders learn some advanced techniques that they could apply on their own projects with Watershape University. What's that transition been like for you from, just being on the front lines of being a pool builder every day to, coaching other people and showing them the ropes?
I couldn't have gotten to where I am without people doing the same thing for me. One of the first people that I met within Genesis was Randy Beard, who's since retired here in Southern California for, decades. And even though we were in the same market, I would go down and ride along with Randy. And so for me, just that rhythm of taking time out to learn on my own, and I still do that kind of thing. And so now it is kind of interesting because I've kind of transitioned to being more the mentor and more helping. But that rhythm has always been established, since the very beginning of my career, being able to carve out time, for learning or now for giving back.
Sure. You've gotten to work with some of the best names in the industry. I mean, I'm talking Jimmy Reed, Shane LeBlanc, Randy Beard, real big names in the industry. Who are some of the designers that inspire you today that possibly nobody's ever heard of?
So much of our work is actually not even designed by pool designers, which is it's really an intriguing process because a lot of the plans that we get, the actual design and layout of the pool is already defined, kind of by the primary architect. And so our job is simply to come in and figure out how to make everything work. So we interviewed, Paul McLean from McLean Design, a house designer. So we interviewed him on the Ask the Master podcast, and I really, really loved that. So the people that I enjoy working with are primarily, home architects, but there's so many good people across the country. I think Jason Brownlee is really, he's doing some amazing projects. Now that Johnny Nalepa, I don't remember, I think that's how you pronounce his last name, has teamed up with Shane LeBlanc, I'm really intrigued to see some of the stuff that they're going to be. Andy over at Aquatic Consultants down in South Beach, Miami, they have always been real kind of cutting edge on some of the things that they've built. There's a guy, Randy Angel out of Texas, and probably, the stuff that Ben Lassiter and Design Ecology out of Austin, just some of their stuff is incredible, and probably what I think is the top builder in the world, definitely in the country, if not the world right now. Rick Chafee from Red Rocks.
Okay.
He and I, we run Ask the Masters together, but I'm constantly, even to this day, reaching out to him with, hey, I'm having this little issue or on that, and just some of the things that he has done, it just, he's definitely on the very bleeding edge of design and everything within the industry, just pushing the limits as hard and as far as they can be pushed.
Mhm. And speaking of being on the leading edge of design, that's another thing that I wanted to talk to you about is why should aspiring pool designers, pool builders consider Watershape University as a means to continuing their education?
Yeah. So talking specifically on the design side, my firm doesn't actually do design. We do hydraulic design in that, but we don't actually design pools. I'm too mathematical, so my stuff always comes out looking like a CAD drawing, like Legos. I love figuring out how to make things work. But one of the biggest benefits that I have found, and again, speaking as a non-designer, I can interface with design professionals, and I understand why, a certain wall has to be in a certain place. And, sometimes if you move, the wall of the spa, if it moves over 3 inches, for some reason in the field, many pool builders would be like, oh yeah, just slide the whole spa over 3 inches. It's not going to make any big difference. But from a design perspective, that wall may have aligned with many other elements throughout the entire project. And so oftentimes, the beginning stages of pool construction get very stressful, setting forms and coordinating the excavator and the steel guys and all of that and making sure everything gets done, quickly. Sometimes some of the details get overlooked or snap decisions are made in the field. And I am very sensitive to the design process. Because I've taken so many design classes in my career, I'm not as likely to make a decision in the field without first interfacing with the designer and making sure that that decision is not impacting other things down the road. So for me, it's not only given me a sensitivity to understanding the design process, but it's also given me language so that I can speak with designers and interface with them. That's been the invaluable part, has been the ability to communicate with them on a similar playing field. Pool builders and designers, there's a very tenuous relationship there, because pool builders tend to not pay that close attention to the design intent of the design.
Well, that's really what I'm getting to. I know it's not a design program per se, but I think it would benefit pool designers, some of the top pool designers in the country, to actually take this program and learn the construction side. Because to me, it's like a race car driver not knowing how the race car works.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I love the programs, is because you get both sides.
Right.
You have to take some design classes, elements of design and color theory and, those kind of classes, which are much more from a design perspective. My wife won't let me pick out the color of the peanut butter and jelly,
right.
Because I'm so inept at that, but I can understand it. And so it creates a more well-rounded individual. So from a design perspective, if you're coming in, it's important for you to know, that like an infinity edge basin has to be, so deep. You can't design an infinity edge basin that's 9 inches deep without having a surge tank and things like that. So understanding both sides of it, I think it not only makes better pool builders to understand the design side, but conversely, it makes design professionals better designers because they understand some of the limitations in the field of construction.
Thanks so much for that, Dave. What are some of the exciting new design trends that you are trying to incorporate in your own projects these days?
I think we're seeing a lot more of the acrylic really coming in and maturing. I think acrylic panels, they've been around and kind of a hot ticket for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years now. But I think we're starting to see the design professionals really starting to understand where an acrylic panel is going to be the most successful and where it's going to have the most design impact. We're involved with one with a glass floor. We've got a pool in a basement, and then immediately above that is a glass panel floor reflecting pool. And so essentially it's acting like a 15 by 30 skylight immediately above the basement pool. So you're able to get that natural light down into this hole in the ground, which really it makes that space so much more inviting. So you're starting to see architects really delve into that a lot more. And then I just think water features are really kind of being implemented in so many projects. Just implementing water all over properties. So you're not just doing your typical pool and spa in the backyard. You may have a little water wall by the front entry and a little fountain. You've always had your kind of simple fountains that you can go to the masonry supply house and purchase, but I think you're starting to see a lot more designs that have to be custom coming into place and coming down into more traditional residential type projects where they were previously really limited to kind of the higher end, more expensive type projects. We're doing a ton of rooftop stuff where pool is on top of the living space, and that creates some challenges just with trying to get the water up to the roof. Oftentimes the equipment rooms are down below the pool, so some of those kind of things, and then all the waterproofing challenges that come with that. So many of these, you're over an art gallery or something like that, and you've got multi-million-dollar living spaces below the pool, and so it becomes hypercritical to make sure everything's waterproofed.
Thanks for joining us today. That was Dave Penton, recognized industry leader, Fluid Dynamics Pool and Spa, also consultant with Watershape University, and one of the primary hosts of Ask the Masters, another fantastic podcast you should go check out. Make sure you subscribe to us both. We'll catch you next time on another episode of Pool Magazine Podcast.